Hello everyone, my name is David. Today we are going to take a look at another horrible case with you. DNA is something that has helped solve even the oldest and most complex cases. In the United States, many nearly 50-year-old unsolved cases have been cracked solely due to DNA technology. But in today's case, the victim's two DNA reports turned the police investigation around by 360 degrees. Madhya Pradesh, which literally means Central Province, is a beautiful state in central India. In this state lies a village called Pipariya Chaka in the Damo district. A very small Patel family of 3 members used to live in this village. The family consisted of the head of the household, Laxman Patel, his wife Yashoda Patel, and their 15-year-old son, Jairaj Patel. Just the 3 of them. Speaking of Laxman Patel, he owned property worth millions, including land and a large house. His wife, Yashoda, was a housewife, and both of them deeply loved their son Jairaj, as he was their only child. 14-year-old Jairaj was a 10th grade student at St. John's Senior Secondary School in Damo. He was a bright student, but one habit he had since childhood was that every evening after returning from school, he would go out to play. He had 3 or 4 best friends, and after playing with them, he would always return home before dark, just like every other day on the evening of March 28, 2023. Jairaj went out to play, but as night fell, he had still not returned home. Noticing this, Jairaj's parents set out to search for their son. Many villagers also joined in to help, and Laxman Patel's stepbrother, Dashrath, made every effort to find Jairaj as well. During this time, Laxman Patel also spoke to some of Jairaj's friends with whom he used to spend time. However, Jairaj's friends claimed that on the evening of March 28th, he had not come to play with them. When Jairaj was nowhere to be found, despite an extensive search, his family decided to seek help from the local police on the morning of March 29th, 2023. Worried and desperate, they rushed to their village police station and filed a missing person report for Jairaj. The police, after registering the case, also began searching for him. But when the police also failed to find any information about Jairaj for 2 to 3 days, his parents began to suspect that their son might have been kidnapped. However, they had not yet received any ransom call to confirm that Jairaj had indeed been abducted. Still under pressure from the family, the police reclassified the missing person case as a kidnapping case, and the investigation now proceeds accordingly. But as time passes, several days go by without any trace of Jairaj. During this time, Laxman and Yashoda Patel become deeply distressed because Jairaj was their only child. As a result, they make every possible effort on their own to find their son. Laxman Patel even announces a cash reward of 500,000 Indian rupees for anyone who can provide information about his son. If converted to today's value in US dollars, that amounts to approximately $5,750. However, even after the entire month of April passes following Jairaj's disappearance on March 28th, there is still no sign of him. This means that Laxman Patel's decision to offer a 500,000 rupees reward proves ineffective. But then, a month and a half after Jairaj went missing, on the morning of May 14th, 2023, 2 farmers from the same village go to work in their fields. Before they can begin their work, they notice something extremely strange in a nearby field. The sight unnerves them, and one of the farmers immediately calls the police station. When the police arrive at the scene, they discover a human skeleton. Meanwhile, everyone in the village was already aware that Laxman Patel's son, Jairaj, had been missing for the past month and a half, as Laxman Patel was one of the wealthiest men in the village. This leads the police to suspect that the skeleton might belong to Jairaj. To confirm their suspicions, they ask Jairaj's parents to come to the field. Upon hearing this, Laxman and Yashoda Patel arrive at the site shortly after. The police then show them the skeleton, and as soon as they see the belongings scattered nearby, they immediately recognize them and confirm that the remains belong to their son. Near the skeleton, the police had found a shirt, a belt, and a pair of pants. After looking at these clothes and the belt, Jairaj's parents instantly recognized them as belonging to their son. At this point, the police also conclude that Jairaj, who had been missing all this time, is now dead. To proceed with the investigation, forensic experts are called to the scene. The forensic team carefully collects every bone from the skeleton, along with the clothing and belt, placing them into separate plastic bags. However, Jairaj's parents then request the police to hand over their son's remains so they can perform his last rites. But the police could not conclude that the skeleton belonged to their son Jairaj, solely based on Laxman and Yashoda Patel's identification and the discovery of the clothes and belt. Therefore, legally confirming the identity of the skeleton was necessary. The police informed Jairaj's parents that they could not hand over the skeleton until forensic evidence proved it was indeed their son's remains. The only way to legally establish the identity was through DNA matching between the skeleton and samples from Jairaj's parents. Because of this, the police requested blood samples from Jairaj's parents, and subsequently, Laxman and Yashoda Patel's blood samples were collected. Following this, the blood samples from Jairaj's parents and the skeleton were sent to the State Forensic Science Laboratory for DNA profiling. This laboratory serves as the headquarters for forensic science investigations across the state of Madhya Pradesh. Everyone now awaited the DNA report, as it would confirm Jairaj's identity. However, obtaining the report required patience, and within a week, forensic experts completed the DNA analysis and handed the report over to the police. When the police examined the report, they were shocked. It revealed that the DNA of the skeleton did not match either Laxman or Yashoda Patel. This clearly indicated that the skeleton did not belong to Jairaj. When the police informed Jairaj's parents of the results, they were unable to comprehend how to process this revelation. Two crucial questions arose. If the skeleton was not Jairaj's, then where was Jairaj? And for the police, the challenge was to determine the true identity of the remains. Given this uncertainty, senior police officers decided to send the skeleton and Jairaj's parents' DNA samples for further examination at one of India's Central Forensic Science Laboratories. They selected the Central Forensic Institute in Chandigarh, a union territory of India, as it is a leading institution in forensic science research and development, particularly in DNA analysis. Thus, the police sent Jairaj's parents' blood samples and the skeleton's DNA sample nearly 637 miles away to the forensic lab in Chandigarh. Once again, everyone waited for the DNA report. A few days passed, and within a week, the Chandigarh forensic lab handed over the results to the police. Coincidentally, the report was identical to the one received from the State Forensic Science Laboratory. It was now conclusively established that the skeleton did not belong to Jairaj, as its DNA did not match that of his parents. But on the other hand, Laxman and Yashoda Patel had already accepted that their son had been murdered, and now the police should focus on finding his killers. This is why Jairaj's father even told the police that he was the one who had bought his son that belt and those clothes. So he was certain that the skeleton belonged to Jairaj. Laxman Patel then urged the police to hand over the remains, saying, "Jairaj was our only son, so please give us his skeleton so that we can perform his last rites, allowing both us and his soul to find peace. After all, you already have samples from the remains." However, the police repeatedly refused to hand over the skeleton to Laxman Patel because it had not yet been confirmed that it belonged to Jairaj. At this point, Jairaj's family was constantly pressuring the police, but the investigation was still inconclusive. Meanwhile, the senior police officer handling the case at the Piparia Chowka police station was transferred. In his place, the new assistant superintendent of police, Sandeep Mishra, took over. Upon arriving at the station, he came across the case and decided to review it thoroughly. After studying the entire case carefully, he realized that Jayaraj's parents had a strong case. In fact, even before the DNA report, the post-mortem report had already revealed that the deceased was between 15 and 18 years old and had died approximately a month and a half earlier. Additionally, the way the clothes and belt were found stuck to the skeleton indicated that they had not simply been thrown there. Despite analyzing all these factors, Assistant Superintendent Sandeep Mishra was still puzzled as to why Jayaraj's DNA did not match that of his parents. Because of this, he decided to question Laxman and Yashoda Patel again. However, this time he asked them a different set of questions. When and where was Jayaraj born? And when he was born, was there any chance that he had been accidentally switched with another baby at the hospital? By this point, months had passed since the police had begun their investigations, yet none of the officers had considered this possibility. They had all assumed that the skeleton did not belong to Jayaraj, but to someone else. However, when Sandeep Mishra asked Jayaraj's parents about his birth details, they revealed something they had never mentioned before. Laxman and Yashoda Patel disclosed that they had gotten married in 2004 and had tried multiple times to have a child, but all their attempts had failed. After this, both of them went to a hospital for a checkup, where they found out that they both had reproductive issues, making it difficult for Yashoda Patel to conceive. However, someone then informed them about the medical procedure of IVF. Since IVF was quite popular in India during the 2000s, and because Laxman Patel had also heard about it, he felt a small sense of hope upon learning about this medical procedure. Now, before we move forward, let's quickly go through the IVF process step by step. In most IVF cases, doctors give women special injections and medications to help their ovaries produce more eggs than usual. Once the eggs are ready, the doctor uses a small needle to extract them from the woman's ovaries. After that, the male sperm is collected, and then, in a laboratory, doctors combine the sperm and eggs, leading to fertilization. This process is similar to natural conception, but it takes place outside the body in a lab. A few days later, the fertilized egg develops into an embryo. Finally, the doctor selects the best embryo and implants it into the woman's uterus. After the procedure, doctors advise women to take a pregnancy test 2 weeks later. However, in the case of Laxman and Yashoda Patel, both of them had fertility problems, which had been diagnosed by a doctor. After learning this, the couple traveled 263 miles from their village to an IVF hospital in Indore, the commercial hub of Madhya Pradesh. There, the doctors examined both of them and then implanted a donated embryo into Yashoda Patel's uterus. As a result, in 2008, Jayaraj was born through IVF technology. Simply put, Yashoda Patel only carried Jayaraj in her womb and gave birth to him. Other than that, he had no genetic connection to her, as he was conceived using the sperm of a different male donor and the egg of a different female donor. When this fact came to light, the Assistant Superintendent of Police realized the real reason why the DNA of the skeletal remains did not match Laxman and Yashoda Patel's DNA. Following this, Officer Sandeep Mishra asked Jayaraj's parents for details about the two donors whose sperm and egg had been used for his birth. However, 14 years had passed since Jayaraj was born, and over those years his parents didn't feel the need to keep those documents carefully, leading to their loss. Upon hearing this, Sandeep Mishra obtained the address of the IVF hospital in Indore, where Jayaraj was born. He then went there and asked, "In 2008, a child named Jayaraj was born at your IVF center. Can you provide us with the names of his sperm and egg donors? But let me tell you that under the Assisted Reproductive Technology Regulation Act 2021 in India, disclosing the identity of donors is strictly prohibited. Because of this, the IVF Center in Indore also told SP Sandeep Mishra that they were bound by legal regulations and could not reveal the names of the two donors. After facing this setback, Sandeep Mishra returned to his police station in Damo and started gathering even the smallest details about DNA from the internet. In the midst of all this, his eyes suddenly fell on a book titled DNA Tests in Criminal Investigation and Paternity Disputes. When Sandeep Mishra read this book, he immediately discovered a method to determine whether these skeletal remains belonged to Jairaj. However, before he could solve the case, Officer Sandeep Mishra was transferred to another police station. Meanwhile, the skeleton was still lying in the police station of Piparia, Chaka village. Frustrated with the police administration, Jairaj's parents then approached the Madhya Pradesh High Court. They filed a writ petition in the High Court stating that their son had been missing for several months, yet the police had failed to find him. They also pointed out that a skeleton had been found near their son Jairaj's clothes, but the police were refusing to hand it over to them, citing legal procedures. After reviewing the case, the court ordered the police to keep some samples of the skeleton for themselves and hand over the remains to Jairaj's parents so they could perform his last rites. Finally, after 13 months and 13 days of Jairaj's disappearance, on May 12, 2024, the police, following the High Court's orders, handed over the skeletal remains to his parents. On the same day, Jairaj's parents conducted the last rites of their son with the few remaining bones. After the cremation, they went to the Chief Minister of Madhya Pradesh and shared their heartbreaking ordeal with him. Following this, the Chief Minister's office instructed the state's Director General of Police to solve the case properly. In India, a Chief Minister is the head of a state government, while the DGP holds the highest position in the state police force and is responsible for maintaining law and order. Acting on the Chief Minister's orders, the Madhya Pradesh DGP reprimanded the police in Piparia Chaka village, saying, "What kind of a spectacle is this? There hasn't been a single update in this case for the past 13 months. Solve this case as soon as possible." After receiving this order from the DGP, the police of Piparia Chaka village once again contacted Officer Sandeep Mishra and asked him about the idea he had after reading the book DNA Test in Criminal Investigation and Paternity Dispute. Sandeep Mishra then instructed the police to go to Jairaj's house and collect anything that belonged to him. This included everything from his childhood toys to his school uniform. Eventually, the police visited Jairaj's house and collected his toys, school bag, school ID card, and even a whistle. Officer Sandeep Mishra's idea was that some traces of Jairaj's DNA, such as sweat, hair, or saliva, would be present on these items. He explained that once these items were collected, they needed to compare the DNA with the remains found in the fields. After gathering Jairaj's belongings, the police sent them to the forensic lab in Chandigarh. When forensic experts examined them, they found several usable samples, including pieces of Jairaj's nails, a strand of hair, sweat traces, and even saliva on his whistle. The forensic experts at the Chandigarh lab then matched these DNA samples with the DNA from the skeletal remains. Here, both the forensic experts and the police achieved a major breakthrough because Jairaj's DNA sample was a 100% match with the DNA from the skeleton. This confirmed that the skeletal remains which Jairaj's parents had cremated indeed belonged to their son. There was no longer any doubt that the remains were Jairaj's. However, the real question remained: how did Jairaj die? And if he was murdered, who was the killer? The police then began investigating in this direction, and within a few days they learned from a villager that Jairaj was last seen around March the 28th with his step-uncle's son, Manvendra Patel. When the police questioned Manvendra Patel, he stated that he and Jairaj used to play together often, and on March 28, 2023, he was teaching Jairaj how to ride a bike. Manvendra further explained that after some time, he received a call from his father, so he left Jairaj there and took his bike home. At this point, the police found no useful information, so they decided to question Jairaj's father, Laxman Patel. When they spoke to him, he revealed a new story. He explained that he owned a lot of land and a large house, but after marrying Yashoda Patel, they were unable to have children. Because of this, Laxman Patel and his stepbrother, Dashrath, often had disputes over property. Dashrath would repeatedly tell Laxman Patel and his wife, "You are a married couple, you don't have any children, and both of you can live in a small house. So you should transfer all your land to my son, Manvendra." However, Laxman Patel refused every time to transfer his land to his stepbrother Dashrath's son, Manvendra Patel. Perhaps even at that time, Laxman and Yashoda Patel had the desire to become parents, which eventually led them to an IVF center in Indore in 2007. A while later, their wish came true, and in 2008, Jairaj was born. But when Jairaj was born, Dashrath realized that after his birth, Laxman Patel would never give even a single penny of his land to him or his son, Manvendra. Since childhood, Jairaj's parents showered him with love and ensured he never lacked anything. However, as Jairaj grew older, Dashrath and his son Manvendra started feeling that if Jairaj reached adulthood, Laxman Patel would transfer all his property solely to Jairaj. This thought led Dashrath and Manvendra to decide that they would kill Jairaj before he became an adult. However, they never let Jairaj or his parents get even the slightest hint of their evil plan. Whenever Manvendra met Jairaj, he treated him like a younger brother. But finally, the fateful day arrived, March 28, 2023, when Manvendra Patel took Jairaj with him, under the pretense of teaching him how to ride a bike. Manvendra then took Jairaj to their farmland, where a small room-like structure was present, and his father, Dashrath Patel, was already there waiting. Manvendra Patel then strangled Jairaj with his own hands, while his father, Dashrath, held Jairaj's hands and legs. Once they were certain Jairaj was dead, they buried him right there in their field. However, in their panic, they did not dig the grave deep enough. Due to rainfall, the soil over Jairaj's grave began to erode, and slowly his skeleton emerged above the ground. Later, when two farmers went to work on their land, they noticed a skeleton in the adjacent field, Dashrath Patel's land. That's how the entire case was uncovered. However, in this case, Officer Sandeep Mishra performed his duty with complete honesty, dedicating all his years of experience to solving it. That is why it is often said that when a police officer investigates a case with integrity, it becomes nearly impossible for a criminal to escape. Due to the efforts of such an honest officer, Sandeep Mishra, the mystery behind Jairaj's murder was unraveled, and ultimately Manvendra and his father were put behind bars. However, the case is still ongoing in court, and no official sentence has been announced for the criminals yet. But we will continue to keep an eye on this case, and if there are any future updates, we will surely share them in a community post on the David True Crime channel. So with that, the Jairaj Patel murder case comes to an end right here. If you appreciate our efforts, like and share this video. If you haven't subscribed, do so now. Thank you.